The Baltimore Ravens beat the hell out of the Miami Dolphins 56-19. Baltimore, with this win, they get the 1 seed in the AFC and they clinch the AFC North Division. This game was what I expected it to be. The Ravens played their best football at home. The last time they blew out the opponent at home, it was the Seattle Seahawks, and before that, it was the Detroit Lions. You don't want to play Baltimore in Baltimore, all right? With them getting the 1 seed, I'm pretty confident that they're going to be a lock to win the AFC and to represent this conference in the Super Bowl. Who else in the AFC has a great chance of beating Baltimore? Name me a team. Buffalo? Okay, maybe. Outside of them, it's nobody else. The Dolphins are the 2nd seed, and they got whooped today. They had a little bit of success on their first couple of drives, but before we hit 2 minutes of this game, going into halftime, this is when the Ravens really put the hammer down on the Dolphins. You had Tua, who threw an interception before the 2-minute warning, which led to eventually 2 Baltimore touchdowns. You had Lamar Jackson hitting Isaiah Likely for a score on 4th and 7. Lamar Jackson, if he hasn't already, he did it today, cementing himself as the MVP of this season. This is going to be his 2nd MVP award. He's looked like the best quarterback in the National Football League. Todd Monken has turned Lamar Jackson into the most lethal quarterback in the National Football League. And I truthfully don't believe that this Ravens offense is playing at the level that they're capable of. Because when you think about it, with how accurate of a passer Lamar Jackson has become, how dynamic he is as a runner, the Ravens really shouldn't be getting stopped on offense too many times. They should be scoring on at least 80% of their offensive possessions. Because how can you really stop Lamar Jackson? When Lamar Jackson and his offense are functioning at peak capacity, it's like playing against the Ravens on Madden. You ever went against Lamar and Madden and everybody just runs around with them and they're getting first downs and you just can't stop it? Because how can you stop a guy who can kill you by extending plays, and if nobody's open, he can tuck it and run? He's a threat to take it to the house every time he runs with the football. And then if you take away his running ability, he's just going to shred your ass up throwing that thing. Lamar Jackson has truly become an unstoppable force in the NFL under Todd Monken. Todd Monken doesn't get talked about a lot because the casual NFL fan doesn't pay attention to who the coordinators are unless they suck. But Todd Monken was the best offseason hire when it comes to coaching staff changes all offseason that any team made. The Ravens, they nailed their hiring of Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, and it's paid dividends for them this season. This offense has looked better than they ever had. I've never remembered the time the Ravens had an offense this explosive when they can beat you, not just running the football, which most people believe to be their bread and butter, but with the wide receivers they have, OBJ, Zay Flowers, who went off today, he had over 100 receiving yards, 3 receptions, and he also had a 75-yard touchdown bomb. You got Rashad Bateman. You got Isaiah Likely at tight end, who when Mark Andrews went down, people was like, man, the Ravens offense is going to take a big step back without Andrews. Isaiah Likely, who they drafted a few years ago out of Coastal Carolina, he's been a really good replacement for Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews may be able to come back at some point throughout the playoffs, depending on how his injury recovery goes. Isaiah Likely, he isn't better than Mark Andrews, but there are certain areas of his game that are better than Mark Andrews. He's better after the catch. He's explosive. He can make guys miss. He's a little shifty. Most tight ends don't have a lot of nimbleness that Isaiah Likely has. You could give him a screen pass and he's a threat to take it to the house. This dude has really great athleticism. I was really high on him when he was coming out of Coastal Carolina. When the Ravens got their hands on him, I was like, here they go again. And as a Steelers fan, it's really annoying that the Ravens just seem to dominate in the draft. Every draft pick that the Ravens make in the first couple of rounds, they normally end up hitting. Even if they don't end up being like elite players at their position, most of the time they end up being like B-, B+ players. That's what the Ravens have on their roster. They don't have any players on this team that are worse than B minus. They got a great secondary, a great front seven. They got a nasty pass rush. They got Jadeveon Clowney having a career year. You know something that the Ravens do better than any other team in the NFL? They're the only franchise I know that can get these old players that people consider to be washed up and squeeze a little bit of juice left out of their career. You remember when they had Justin Houston? He was like 100 years old, and he was still one of their more productive pass rushers. And I thought they would have brought him back for another go-around. The Ravens, they're just one of these teams that they have no weakness. The only weakness the Ravens have, truthfully, are themselves. If you can't get the Ravens to beat themselves, or the Ravens just don't play their best game, that's the only way you really have a chance of beating this squad. Maybe Buffalo can give the Ravens a better test for their money because they got Josh Allen. Tua Tagovailoa is a solid QB, but he's no Lamar Jackson. And it was evident in this game. Anytime the Dolphins needed him to step up and make a big throw, he couldn't deliver. The Dolphins defense couldn't deliver neither. Vic Fangio is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the National Football League, and they got destroyed and obliterated by Lamar and company. The Ravens, if you didn't know already, you know now, they're the best team in the NFL. And I'm picking them to win it all. I picked them to win it all before the season started. I said that the AFC was either going to come down to Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's out. Lamar's healthy. So guess who's going to win it by default? Lamarvelous, man. Like, I'm so happy to finally see Lamar Jackson thriving and getting the recognition that he deserves, because this dude has been the most hated quarterback in the NFL since he got drafted for no reason at all. People just hate Lamar because he's Lamar. And it makes no sense to me. This dude is everything that you want in a quarterback in today's age of the NFL. You want somebody who can extend plays. You want somebody who can be an accurate passer downfield. There's nothing that Lamar Jackson can't do. He can throw the ball from different arm angles. We talk about some of the throws that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes make off platform. We don't give enough credit to how good Lamar Jackson is in that area of his game. This was just an all-around obliteration. The Dolphins, they were a 3.5-point underdog, I believe. I told a lot of my homies that the lock of the week was Baltimore minus 3.5. There just was no way the Dolphins were going to be able to keep this thing close. And what gave me so much confidence about this game being a blowout wasn't just the fact that the Ravens are better than the Dolphins, but also the week prior when they clobbered San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, who is the head coach who Mike McDaniels worked under before he got that Dolphins head coaching job. They kind of run a similar system. There are a little bit of intricacies in their offenses that are different. Mike McDaniel, he likes to throw the ball way more than what Kyle Shanahan does. But there are a lot of similarities in Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan's offenses. And with Mike McDaniel already having to have Kyle Shanahan go up against Mike McDonald's defense, Mike McDonald already had somewhat of a game plan for how he was going to attack Miami and their offense defensively. If you already seen Kyle Shanahan's offense, you pretty much know what Mike McDaniel is going to be throwing at you. So the Ravens, with this 56-19 annihilation of the Miami Dolphins, you know, I am not surprised. I don't believe in the Miami Dolphins being anything more than maybe a one-and-done team in the playoffs. They may win a wild card game, and they're probably going to get knocked out in the divisional round. I never saw the Dolphins as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And before the season, I was going back and forth with hella Dolphins fans when I said they were a dark horse Super Bowl contender, which means that you may be able to win the Super Bowl, but you're a couple pieces away. And they were saying, oh, you're hating on the Dolphins. You're hating on the Tua. And ever since the season has started, the Dolphins' best win came against the Dallas Cowboys, who barely managed to beat Detroit. And I don't hear any Dolphins fans talking anymore, though. Dolphins fans are pretty quiet. You can't beat good teams. And your offense never shows up when you do play a great team. Their offense only scored 20-something points against the Dallas Cowboys. They put 70 on the Broncos, but they can't do that against a good team. I wonder if they're even going to be able to beat the Buffalo Bills next week. Y'all think they're going to be able to beat Buffalo? Because I don't think so. Like the Ravens, not only did they send a statement to the NFL today that they're the team to beat? There are still people who think that the 49ers are the best team in the league, which makes no sense to me because the Ravens kicked their ass on Christmas. What do the Ravens have to do for everybody to hop on the train? Like, if you are one of those people that like to bet money on Super Bowl futures bets, I'm taking Baltimore. I'm not a financial advisor. What you do with your money is what you do with your money. But if I got to bet some money on who's going to win it all this year, I'm taking Baltimore. This has been the most dominant team in the NFL from week 1 to going into week 18 now. Most teams this year, they've had cold stretches. The Ravens haven't really had a cold stretch. The only time they looked cold was when they had that weird loss to the Cleveland Browns when Lamar Jackson, that offense, kind of self-imploded on themselves. And that goes back to my earlier point. If you want to beat the Ravens, you have to get them beating themselves, or you have to get them in a game where they're not playing their A game. Hell, even them playing their B game is good enough to beat the majority of the teams out there. I feel bad for any team in the playoffs that has to play the Baltimore Ravens that has Super Bowl aspirations because they're going to get destroyed. This is Lamar Jackson's year to finally win a Super Bowl. And I'm really interested in seeing what a Super Bowl win would do for Lamar Jackson's legacy. We're going to talk about what a Super Bowl win would mean for Lamar Jackson and how his career trajectory is going to look if he was to win one later on in the week. But the Ravens just had a complete annihilation of the Miami Dolphins. They clobbered these boys 56-19. Give me your thoughts on this game. Were you shocked that the Ravens dominated the Dolphins the way they did? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts down in the comment section down below.